Hey folks, welcome to episode 10 of the Brief Encounter podcast with me, Johnny Boyle. On this episode, I am talking to Status Quo guitarist Richie Malone. Richie hails from Dublin, and coincidentally, I was introduced to him by my good friend Linda in my local pub. I didn't realise he lived locally. I didn't realise Status Quo had an Irish guitar player, and he's such a cool and nice guy. So when I was introduced to him, I did say to him I'll be in touch about 6 months ago to do the podcast, and Richie was very kind enough to meet me. Richie took over from Rick Parfitt, who sadly died a few years ago, and it's an incredible story how Richie went from being a child, essentially, where his dad was taking him to Status Quo gigs, and he went from hanging out at the stage door to kind of building up a good rapport with the guys in the band, to eventually being invited up on stage during sound checks. And Rick Parfitt really took a shine to this young guy, and as their relationship developed, he insisted that if anything ever happened to him, that Richie would take over. And it's a very interesting story, really, because it can be very difficult for a musician to take over from somebody as iconic as Rick. Rick and Francis Rossi are a very recognisable duo in the band, and although they've had a few lineup changes over the years, they've always how would you say maintained their integrity as an awesome live band. So when I contacted Richie, he sent me some links, and funnily enough, it was this time last year, 15th of September last year, when he was playing Hyde Park. And it's kind of it's weird to watch a gig of that nature, considering what's going on at the moment. There's very little live music around the world. But what's also great is, for a band that's been going since 1968 and have released 33 albums, they can still kick major ass. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. It really is a great story of just how all of these things can just become kind of serendipitous, and how small beginnings as a fan can turn into something that is unexpected. Richie also contributed some songs to the band's last album. So we had a great chat, and I hope you all enjoy it, and I will talk to you soon, folks. Take care and stay safe. Bye. When I was in the band at 14, 15, that I'm going to be in this band for the rest of my life.
No, of course.
I was very naive.
I know.
And when I got my first big session gig with Marianne Faithfull, we went around the world for a year, met some incredible people, played with some
great times,
met a lot of my heroes, which I'm sure you've done, as well. Yeah. And
missed a lot too along the way.
Well, yeah,
so close to.
Oh yeah. I know.
The night before, the night after, or whatever,
So I was going to ask you, just in terms of how's your COVID been? Because I know everybody's had a different experience, and a lot of songwriters I know are they don't want to put out music right now because they can't tour it.
Yeah.
So how's it been for you?
It's been up and down. At the initial few weeks, it's a learning curve for everybody. You don't know what to be doing. You get, for me at the start of it, I got some great bursts of being creative, and I'm going to have to do this, get myself set up, get some new equipment, move with the times, set myself up digitally to be able to record and send stems and parts and pieces to people. I hadn't been set up like that before, so that's one good thing that came out of COVID at the initial. But as the weeks went on, I'm sure everyone can relate to it. You just lose all kind of drive. Yeah. I was thinking, obviously I knew at a certain point before the public that the tour was going to be cancelled. So behind closed doors, I was just, destroyed. Could not believe that the tour was not going to go ahead this year, way in advance of public knowing. But as you know, with logistics and with all, for a large scale tour to be put in place, it takes a lot of time and effort to get it, knock it back down again and reschedule or cancel. So it's been a tough few months, to say the least, but ups and downs. There's been great family time, just spending time in the backyard, having a barbecue just with the family, making cocktails at home. And then you run out of that as well. You're like, done that, what's next? So I felt like you're kind of going forward, and then something knocks you back again, and then keep saying, I have to get back playing guitar, I have to play. And it's like going to the gym. It's like, I'll get there tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and no, something's happened today, I'll do it again, and that weeks, months goes past. So that's been a big shock for me. Is I should be playing more, I should be more driven, but I have no goals now. It's like I'll be forcing myself to try and play, you know. And I know it's the wrong attitude, it's not the right thing to get off you know, for anyone young listening, it's not right to give off that impression, but it's just tough. It's really tough when there's no light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. So
I was very similar to yourself. I was like, initially I was going, I've got all this time to practice now, and I'll set these goals for myself, and you know, for about a month I was kind of doing well, and then I just kind of felt, you know, I was demotivated. And then a gig came in, and I had to do a gig, and I was like, oh shit, I better step back.
Well, it gets you back in line probably quite quick.
It really does, but what I found when I did the gig was I actually got quite nervous, because there was no audience and it was being filmed, and I just got a little bit rattled, because the sound wasn't great. It was it just wasn't an ideal scenario. It's almost like your autopilot isn't fully switched on.
I hear you.
You know, and I came away from it a little bit kind of disappointed with the experience, because I was so looking forward to play. But you know, those kind of things happen. You have good nights and you have bad nights, and you know, but in terms of like dates, like how many dates were you looking at?
I think we were due to do 43, in between 43, 45 shows. The French ones, obviously, still, because of a different law, a different government, they still look like, you know, they haven't been cancelled yet. But like anyone that thinks a concert's going to go ahead this year, you know, it's forget it, you know. But we legally, obviously, we'll wait and see. I can't see it going ahead, but if it did go ahead, well, we have to say, you know, cross that bridge when we come to it. But you know, it's, for me, the heartbreaker moment is just knowing that I'm not going to play the Olympia. Like, we've done bigger places, you know, and that like this tour was going to be theatres. It was going to be much smaller places. So you know what I mean when I say, like, every night would have been full house, you know, stuff to the brim, sweat dripping off the ceiling, you know, that type of atmosphere.
You can see everybody's face.
See everybody, you know. So you know, I'm privileged. I'm very lucky that the band has done arenas and done outdoor, large scale. So to be able to do 3 months of this type of venue, like the Olympia, you know, the Hammersmith Apollo type places, it was magic. Couldn't believe it was going to happen, and then it's just taken from you. You know, so it's like, it's almost like a bad dream. Like, you kind of still, some days I look and I go, in 2 weeks' time I should be going out for rehearsals, or in a month's time we should be in Zurich, or wherever, you know, we're like every other musician in the world. But the same even at grassroots level, even in our local, can't see a guy playing music still, you know, and it's heartbreaking, you know. It
really is, because I mean, obviously I'm sure we both have a lot of musician friends, and to see, you know, people are worried about putting food on the table and paying the mortgage, and you know, in the summer it was great, cocktails in the garden,
all that,
you know, I was running 10k a day. I was like, you know, and then it just all fell by the wayside. You know, and thankfully I teach in BIM, and that's kind of giving me the kick up the ass I need to kind of get back into that now. That's all starting. But again, the college experience now, it's all blended learning online, and there's certainly an element of frustration for us in how you deliver a lesson, because you don't want to you know, the integrity of your lesson has to, you're trying to maintain that as best as possible. So I'm trying to figure that out.
By means of virtual.
Some stuff will be on campus, and some stuff I'll have to do from home. I was on to a friend of mine, Adam Marcello, and like he plays with Katy Perry.
Wow.
So he had to fly home from Asia, and I mean, you know,
in the middle of a tour.
They were in the middle of a tour as well. Jeez. And you know, they were doing more sporadic gigs, but you know, again, like, he's the MD of the band, and but he's been giving me a bit of advice on kind of remote teaching and stuff like that, and just the best gear to buy, and you know, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, because I think with teaching as well, it's that rapport you have with your fellow student or students, whoever it is.
Of course it is,
and you want it to be fun. But that has to be a kind of two-way street in how you communicate. So so we'll see. But again, with the winter coming in, I think there's a certain anxiousness with the weather, and you know,
you just don't know. I know everybody, we're all sick of saying the same stuff. You don't know what's around the corner, but we really don't. I just did an interview yesterday where I said it's in Ireland, it's 2 steps forward and it's 10 steps back. You think you're going in the right direction, something happens and then we're all going backwards again. You know, we think we're going to see a little bit of normality resume soon. but it can be taken away from you just like that at any moment. It's that uncertainty that's it's driving me insane. Not to mention the rest of the world, you know.
Well, I think in Ireland as well, there's also that element of, I think we feel a little bit let down by our government and how we've been kind of pushed to the wayside. But not just musicians, but anyone in the arts.
I think so.
You know, I know. I read today there's been a grant of €6 million, but 6 million among all of us, like how far is that going to go? It's not going to go very far, and I think that's more of a lip service, really. I think is what it is, and you know, I don't expect any handouts. No, I just want to work.
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
So that's the situation. It's a pain in the ass. The uncertainty of it all, you know.
Well, funnily enough, I'm releasing a podcast tomorrow, and it's with Rick McMurray from Ash, the Northern Irish band. Really nice guy, but we did it back in February. And it's only coming out tomorrow, and it's amazing.
It's different.
And they were just heading out on a 25th anniversary, massive tour for the year. And
I can imagine the difference now listening to that interview now compared to...
It is very weird.
And it was in February.
It was in February,
I got married at the end of February.
Did you really?
29th.
29th,
yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Commiserations, some say.
But you've 3 kids, don't you?
Yeah.
They're quite young though as well.
Yeah, George is 5 and the twins are 4. So it's a bit of a handful, you know, in fairness to Jess, my wife. She's really taken grasp of it while I was out on the road and they were young. But just to think that this year with that wedding was the last, like it was like a mini Live Aid. Before I went into the music and anything else. But did
the band play at your wedding? Did you?
We had a few members of Quo were there. Francis, you know, he wouldn't. I couldn't imagine what it would be like for him to be there because, you know, with the Irish and a few drinks, and him that doesn't drink or doesn't do drugs anymore, he's the complete opposite. He would be pulled left, right, and centre. So I got a lovely phone call off him, a lovely video call in the day and stuff. So, but we had a bit of a bash all day, and it was thinking back, talking to the guys that worked at it, the photographers, the catering people, kept in touch with all of them, and they said it's the last big bash that any of them have had in the business. We were literally just at the start of this pandemic. And it was the last time everyone can remember touching hands, like saying thanks to people, hugging them, kissing them, shaking hands without worrying about anything. And then bang, 2 weeks later, that's it. You know, so it's in a way I feel sorry for Jess because that's the way she started married life. You know, it's
I know what you mean, but and then she was stuck with you for 6 months. 6 months indoors. Well, it's funny because you know, I did the bulk of my touring when my kids were actually, I was touring for many years before my kids were born. But when my eldest daughter was born, I was touring with Marianne Faithfull, and I wasn't even there for the birth.
You were out. You were working.
I was on tour. I was in Toulouse in France, and the irony is my wife's French. So while she's in Ireland having my kids, I'm in France.
Oh no!
But what was great was they flew me back the next day for a day, and I got But for the first 4 years of my daughter's life, I was away.
And I missed most of it.
Yeah, I missed a lot. And thankfully, my dad gave us a big dig out. The old grandparents, God bless them, you know. But funnily enough, where I lived in an apartment kind of complex, with everybody thought my dad was my wife's husband. They thought he was the husband. You know? And then they see me come, who's this guy?
This young lad? No, it is. Look, it's hard. I can totally relate to that. You know, I haven't been doing the touring as long as yourself. Or even our bass player Rhino, he said it was something that hit him really hard only recently, and it was, he said to his son Freddie, like, what do you remember most about me when you were younger? And he said something along the lines of like, you not being there. And he said, fuck, you know, like that really hit home, that you just not being there, Dad. That's what I remember. So I can only imagine what it must have been like for guys going way back. You know, and a real tour, in my opinion, you were gone for 9-12 months of the year, gone. You come back briefly and then you're gone again. Those guys, you know, it was maybe a phone call or a postcard. So I've stuck with that tradition. A lot of Quo fans now picked up on it, and every time we go to a show they hand up these postcards with stamps, because I always try to, you know, the old traditional way, send postcards, and I normally beat the postcard home. You know? I send a postcard to myself.
That's great. That's great.
I can relate to it. I know it's hard. You're missing the kids. Grow up, and I'm missing. That was a hard thing for me when you join in Status Quo, was just that everything goes out the window. Absolutely everything, bar, you know, if it was a funeral or something and you had to go home. But I've missed everything. I've missed birthdays, kids' birthdays, weddings. I have missed funerals, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just to take that on board. It's like, this is it. You've no choice.
Yeah.
You want to be at that level or go home. You know, it's tough. But
It's a sacrifice.
Yes,
But, you know, I remember growing up as well in my in my 20s, I missed all my friends' stag nights. I missed their weddings. I missed, I missed all of that stuff, and a lot of stuff. You know, but I suppose I'm kind of making up for it now. You know?
Yeah, of course. Well, in the last 6 months,
video
calls.
Yeah, I'm starting to talk to everyone I haven't seen for years. You know, well, it's funny because I like touring years ago. You know, trying to find a phone card and a payphone,
call card,
right? The call card and the tenner, and you see the credit going down, and you get 5 minutes for a tenner, right?
Collectible.
And you're like, I love you, I love you, I love you.
Yeah. It's beeping.
But what was amazing was the transition from Skype. From Skype and being on a tour bus on Skype, and you're like, hey, yeah, I'm traveling through Kansas, and
no excuses,
you know, and then 15 years later you're like, fuck, I gotta take another Zoom call.
Shit. Oh, not another, you can FaceTime me.
Oh God, you know. So let me ask you, like, what was your initial like introduction to Status Quo? Is your dad a musician?
No, but it's the most uncanny thing. He can play basic 12-bar blues, as in a basic shuffle. Just, I don't know how. No, it's no good.
Like as in drums or no,
on rhythm guitar.
On rhythm
so
guitar.
He can just kind of go bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, just that basic shuffle. I don't know how he ever knew how to do it, but he just kind of has it. But it was through him, obviously, I got introduced to the band. He had the walls plastered with Quo, and he played them non-stop when I was growing up. Like, we'd be out playing on the road, and you'd hear. I can still hear it. It was either Quo, or at the time, Quo had done a single for Manchester United called "Come On You Reds," and it was one of their re-record songs of "Burning Bridges," and I can still remember that in the early '90s, hearing that, and I'm out playing football on the street, and you just hear this pounding rhythm guitar coming through the windows, you know. So it was always there, but I never really took notice of it. It was like a young lad or a girl growing up, and the dad's into football. Most likely you're going to end up following that team. Yeah. Most likely, or unlikely, you might hate that team, you know. So it was always there, and he offered to take me to see Quo when they were playing in the Point. I think it was around '96, but I was terrified. I can still remember thinking it would be too loud and too many people. Yeah. And now fast forward, like, that's everything you want in a concert. Be it loud, be packed. So that passed, and then they were coming back again in 1999, and they were playing up in Belfast with Midge-Ure, and it was on the Falls Road. So I said, okay, let's go. And I had never experienced live music properly ever before, apart from seeing him headbang to the videos. So I went up, and I can remember Midge-Ure being booed off the stage with the Quo chant. So I didn't know what is this normal, you know? And thankfully I've met him a few times since. He's a lovely guy. Yeah. But they just came on, and I just remember the lights going down exactly like the way it is now. The lights go down, and they just came out, and it was just with a bang, you know. And I said, wow, is this what it's all? Is this what Dad has been talking about all these years? And there was a lot of eye contact. That's something I remember really clearly. It was eye contact with the people down the front, as opposed to just walking out and you see guys and they do their thing and out they go. I was taken back by the amount of eye contact. They were looking down, and the acknowledgement that everyone was kind of getting, and the fingers pointing, and, you know, that kind of made part of the show. But I was just blown away, full stop, and that was it. It was like I was converted on the spot type thing. Wow. Just as well he wasn't into ABBA or something like that. You know?
Julio Iglesias.
But it kind of, that was the introduction, and it led me on a crazy journey of music. Obviously it brought with its own downfalls, like me going into secondary school, like the slaggings, the bullying, you know. I'd be going into school with Quo all over my journal, and like they didn't even know who Quo were, the other kids, but because you were into it, it was something to pick on, you know.
Of course it was. Yeah.
But I think that made me want to be into it more, you know, that kind of way.
Yeah.
But we continued to go and see them over the years. Just, it was like me and my dad. We weren't. It wasn't father and son. It was like best mates. Yeah. And like he'd still listen to them now. But like, they were magic. Those those years, you know.
It's funny because I had a similar experience. My dad used to take me to lots of gigs.
Yeah, okay.
But it would be things like, you know, Paul Brady in the Olympia.
Right, okay,
There used to be a band called Step Aside.
Of course,
they used to play in the Purty Loft.
Yeah, of
and,
course.
you know, he would just take me to random songwritery gigs.
And that's why you're a very good musician now, you see.
Well, I wouldn't say very good. I'd say musician loosely, being a drummer, you know. I wouldn't say very good. But it is that stuff that really kind of initiates your kind of vested interest in it as a young person. That's why something I miss, or I think is missing in Ireland now, is those Saturday afternoon gigs and Sunday gigs where you can actually take your kids to a gig. Because now it's all no, it has to be a normal dome gig where it's 150 quid a ticket for your kid, and then you have to, you know, and there should be crazy, smaller stuff. There should be, you know, stuff that's more accessible to kids, something that's more affordable. It's like an event now where you're looking at a screen and you can see these little blimps on the stage, and you know, there has to be more to offer, I think, young people, and you know, but
you see it across Europe. I'm sure you've seen it, like some of the festivals in Sweden and wherever. It's a different world. It's a family affair, and it's daytime stuff, and it's amazing to see the amount of young kids. Not to say it's not happening here, but the way it's been done across in different countries it's incredible, you know. That's
because the Europeans know how to behave themselves.
True.
but it's amazing because you mentioned the whole eye contact thing, and that's something I've always, you know, would play in nice rooms or big is always that it's almost like that eye contact and that connection you make with the front row, or that it eggs you on, and it actually means so much to them. I remember seeing the Chili Peppers in the SFX in like 91.
Heard all about that place.
But like the gig wasn't great because John Frusciante, he was going through drug problems. He left the band shortly after that. But Henry Rollins came out and played beforehand, and I remember his drummer making eye contact with me 2 or 3 times, and you know, that just made my day. That was the highlight of the night for me. You know, stuck with me forever. You know,
it was nothing for him when you think of it.
Nothing at all.
But look at what that has done. You know, what sticks in your mind. It's incredible.
Absolutely, and the funny thing is like 20, 30 years later, I'm like friends with him on Facebook, and he's like, hey man, what's that snare you're using? And you know, you're kind of talking drummer stuff, and it's like, you know, which is really cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
So when you were going to see the band, then you were playing guitar at this point?
No, I didn't start till what would be considered late on. Like, I didn't start until I was around 16. It was a late bloomer. So I'd been going to see the band since I was, I probably got 3 years. 3 years of gigs in, of travelling back and forth. And when I got the guitar, I hadn't really been introduced to them closely like the way I was years later. We were still trying to catch them. Like, I'm fascinated. I've always been fascinated with like going to see the band and seeing the tour bus, or getting a glimpse of the famous black Trans Am stage truck. You know, all that. I love all the tech side of things. So when I got the guitar, I really got into it then. You know, obviously it was tunnel vision. It's probably been a good and a bad thing. If I wasn't into the Quo the way I was, I would have been a different guitar player. You know, but because I was into them, I went down a certain road and idolised Rick Parfitt and his rhythm stance and his rhythm playing. So it was just over time we'd start to get to meet him, you know, after I was playing guitar. Just at stage doors type stuff, you know.
So would you just wait? You'd wait?
You the usual, wait hours in advance. Here's the tour bus. And now, years later, and I know how it works and the routine of the band, and knowing that there's going to be people waiting there, it's the way it's come full circle is insane. But like, again, bringing it back to the Olympia, that was the first time I met Rick in 2001. And he had literally just stepped out at the minibus 7 o'clock or whatever, and we had been waiting all day, no sign of him. And I still remember that he just jumped out and said, I just want to stand in out of the rain, but I'll take. And he took pictures with everybody, and I had the old Kodak, you know, wind up camera, disposable camera. And that was another, like, seeing them for the first time, seeing a rock star in person. Again, I was just blown away, you know, starstruck.
Absolutely.
But that type of thing happened quite regularly after that. We just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and he started to notice me. And somewhere along the line, he found out that I was named after him. That was a bit that gets a lot of people. Even so, I had no choice in the matter. My name was decided before I was out, you know, and I was named after, like, Richard Parfitt. So it's a bit strange. It's a lot for people to take in. But that kind of thing mixed with seeing me on the front row, it must have looked insane. My hand over the barrier trying to play rhythm guitar the way he played it, but he probably was looking and going, God help him, he's trying, you know.
Yeah.
It just one thing led to another, you know, and then it just became into a friendship thing. Do you want to come in for a sound check? You know, just that kind of, it was that simple. And we were travelling from Ireland over to the UK, and there's all these diehard Quo fans all over the place, and I still could never believe that this little kid from Dublin has been brought in here.
Yeah.
And he took a shining to me from early on, and just that I was playing like him, I was named after him, and it's just crazy the way it turned out, you know.
Well, I think it shows a real genuine interest in the fans and people, and you know, just a huge amount of integrity, because you know, regardless of who you are, like, or how good you are, or whatever, you know, I think if you can kind of have a positive influence on an individual, or you know, I would say that was very gratifying for him to be able to do that and see you, and every time he saw you getting better, and you maybe were you gradually getting more comfortable around him?
That's something I think that stood to me as well. The starstruck type thing went out the window. I've always been lucky with that. I don't know how. But after a while, there was no, can we get a photograph, or can you sign this? There was none of that. It was more so, how are you keeping, and how's the tour going, and trying to have a normal chit chat while my dad is crumbling in the background.
He's probably so jealous.
Oh, stop. But there's the video that's on YouTube of us doing the sound check. Like, that's, I can't thank my dad enough for actually taking the camera out and actually capturing that moment of the two of us playing, you know, because it had happened 2 years previous, and that was my first time doing a sound check. I was down, it's both in the Killarney, in the INEC of all places. And what's magic about that night, again, he took me up, and we were sat in the front row just watching the band sound check, and the famous words, are you coming up, Rich? And I'm looking around in this empty arena going, is he talking to me? You know, the world just swallowed me up. Wow. And I went up, and he just handed me the main Telecaster, and he says, go for it. I was playing Caroline in the wrong fret. I was that nervous, and he said, I think you've got that. But once I kind of settled a little bit, whatever happened that night, I was told later that he was having an awful problem with his sound on that tour, and for the first time he was able to walk out front of stage and listen to his tone and listen to the rhythm, made a few tweaks, and he hated in-ears terribly. Right, okay. He never, like, Rick he was a rocker.
Yeah, old school,
and he would point and go, look at the wall of Marshalls, now imagine that's in here. You know, it wasn't, you know, he hated it. So he changed something in his tone or whatever, and I was told that he was absolutely made up after hearing someone else finally playing his rhythm guitar in a similar style to him, not the same, you know. But so that again was always the building up of this relationship that I never knew what was actually coming down the line, that I was setting something in stone here as a friendship way down the line, you know. So it's kind of, it was the natural progression the way it was happening. It's mad.
It'd make a great movie.
A fan sent me the Mark Wahlberg movie Rockstar.
Right.
And it's pretty much already been done.
It's already been done.
I could be the Irish version.
I got you. Well, you know, it's funny because I used to give a couple of drum lessons, like, you know, long time ago, and I used to teach this guy in Tala called Adam Fitzsimons, you know, and he was only a young fella. He was about 12 or 13. And I kind of stopped doing drum lessons when I was touring again. I was only kind of doing it sporadically, and but I kept on with this kid because I saw something in him, you know, and his mum and dad were absolutely lovely, and you know, they were just a lovely family, and any time I went up there I really felt welcome and warm, and just some of the nicest people you could ever meet. And again, if I was doing Vicar Street with the Frames, he'd come down to the sound check, and I'd put him in behind the kit, and you know, and I ended up I taught him all through his teens. And then he came to the college bin where I worked at, got his degree, and then he's like, by the time he was in second year, he started depping for me.
No way.
And you know, and he was doing loads of gigs, and he's living in Berlin now. But you know, it's funny, from my experience, I take a huge amount of pride from having a positive influence in that guy's life. And we're friends now. You know, and again, I would stay in touch with him and his family, and you know, and as I say, it's something I'm very proud of. You know,
totally relate to that,
because I've got 2 girls and they're not interested in playing the drums. So I gotta make it up somewhere else. You know. So I was gonna say, like, I watched loads of footage. Like, you sent me some stuff, and I watched that clip from the INEC, which I just thought was great. I thought it was great because you had your guitar on, and he had his, and then he hands his over, and you know, it is like a bit of a passing of the torch. And funnily enough, I scrolled through all the YouTube comments because I just wanted to have a look.
Some nasty ones.
Well, there wasn't really. There was one guy that left a comment that was a bit confusing, and I think he actually replied and said, "I've no idea what you're talking about." but actually. What was brilliant was because like Francis Rossi and Rick Parfitt, like the duo with those two, it's an iconic look of the two of them together. But what was great to see was all the hardcore